Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town.
Happy Thursday, Mike Freeman.
Happy Thursday, Tyler Gould. How are things?
Things are good, and things are better after we got to spend some time tonight with Aaron and Melissa Englebright. The first time for Richest Men in Town to have a husband and a wife together on the show at the same time. And they talked about, gosh,
can you imagine it any other way?
No. I mean, this story had to be told by the two of them together. And for us to be let in the way they let us in, it was an emotional ride, honestly, from the first 30 seconds of the two of them joining us in the room. So what are some things that stood out to you tonight with our time with Aaron and Melissa?
Okay, well, we completely leave the script. So listeners that are coming in and it's like, okay, they're going to start by, going back into childhood. No, we're not. Right? We don't do that. Yeah. And then the other thought is just, we could not have done this without listening to them together. I would venture to go out and even further say, husbands, listen to this with your wives. Wives, listen to this with your husbands. Because this is about foundations. This is about doing hard spiritual work. Right. And I think of a couple of episodes ago, we were talking about it's not doing it right, it's getting it right that matters.
Yeah.
And the Englebrights are all about, their story is all about getting it right, getting to a place where they now have faith that their marriage can make it.
Yeah. I love when she was, she said there was a moment where I started to say it was like that. And I realized that we were in a better spot. They really let us in on the process and what that process looked like. And I think that, we've talked about this a couple different times in different episodes, but they really spent the bulk of their time talking about therapy and how they were able to get some tools and some resources from that's helped them to grow together as a couple and to find closeness in their marriage. And I love that conversation. It's so powerful.
Oh, and they're ripping down stigma, right?
Absolutely.
They are attacking wholeheartedly the myths that are out there, the myths about marriage and conflict in marriage, and the myths about therapy and males in therapy, and just all those stigmas that come with that are shredded tonight, and as they should be, because those are the things that are presenting obstacles to people getting it right.
Yeah. It was a powerful night tonight. They really they spent some time talking about influence of people in their lives and some of the great moments of grace and compassion. And
right place, right time. People answering the call, feeling that something is not right. They love them. And my thing too is there's not picking sides. They love both of them. Yeah. And man, you want to talk about learning some things as they're talking. I'm making new connections, and I'm thinking about things like sin, like shame, and things that I have an understanding of, and I'm thinking of those concepts in totally new ways as I listen to their story.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. I mean, I hope that our listeners enjoy the time that they'll have with Aaron and Melissa. One thing Melissa said tonight was that God will not rush the process for a beautiful work. And what a great theme. Let's hope tonight. We talked about this with Aaron and Melissa. We take notes every week, and let's pick out that one thing that we can do tomorrow that Aaron and Melissa brought to our attention that'll help us be a little bit better. That's what this game's all about, right? Let's get better. Let's do something with the words of great people that bear their souls to us. Let's enjoy our time with Aaron and Melissa Englebright on The Richest Men in Town.
We talked to Troy Blanchard last week.
Yeah.
He told a story about driving up to the sea in Cedar City to propose to his sweetheart, Daphne, right?
Yeah.
And here we are this week. We're heading to Cedar City, brother.
Yeah, we're just going to be in Cedar City with the Englebrights, man.
We've got a corner on Cedar City. So Cedar City, if you're out there, Richest Men in Town
represent
is coming your way. We're talking to Aaron and Melissa Englebright. Yeah. Both of them.
Same time.
Whoa.
See what's going to happen here, man.
I think it's interesting. We can't really say history in the making because it seems like A, we're saying it all the time. And B, I think we're 44 episodes in. So is it really history in the making? Are we even old enough to have history?
That's a great point. I think this is all just recent past. We can't really label it.
You and I are going to sit down and we're going to talk to two people and we're going to try two very interesting people that are married and we're going to try not to be here 4 hours.
Yeah. Let's not scare the listeners away. We're going to try to keep this thing to our huge.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Make it happen.
So Troy Blanchard talks about this disrupt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what pain can do.
Yeah, I think that's what
pain,
we're looking for.
Spiritual
right?
kind of pain, that pain in your heart.
Yeah.
You find yourself picking up the pieces and like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah. And I think anything that forces you, or not forces even, just allows you to sort of self-evaluate and say, hey, where am I at? And what do I have to do to adjust? Those are powerful moments. And quite honestly, I think those moments are more available than maybe we recognize. Do you know what I mean? If we were super tuned in, and when we have that rough conversation with someone at work, right? And we blow it off like, yeah, that guy, you know what? Knucklehead. And we just kind of move on. The reality is there's probably something in that conversation that we need to be adjusting, right? To get that where it needs to be.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because, I shared this quote professionally the other day. That conversation you've been avoiding is actually a leadership opportunity.
Well, yeah. And doesn't that make you think right off the bat, like of John Taylor's wife, right? And he talked about her, she had an issue with someone. It was like on the phone, we're going to have this conversation and we're going to work through it. Like, that's a powerful thing, man. When you're in that spot where you're like, I'm not letting this thing go unchecked.
Yeah, that take care of it now. You're avoiding is a leadership opportunity or a growth opportunity.
Right? Or a growth opportunity, yeah.
Or a disrupt opportunity. That thing that you're like, oh, I don't know if I should go there, right? Oh, I don't know if I should go there. So you pick up like Gary, you pick up your phone and like, what did Sally eat for dinner on her Instagram post?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I it's funny. There is maybe, timing's everything. I'm a believer, right? Timing is everything. And for me, I'm a let's hash it out right now kind of guy. Like, let's get to the bottom of this. I don't want things to fester. Let's go for it. But one of the things I've had to learn is that not everybody appreciates that approach. Sometimes there's wisdom, as I've been taught over the past 24 years, in walking away, taking a deep breath, evaluating things from afar, and then stepping back into the ring and let negotiations begin again.
Sounds like you got some personal experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've become.
See, I'm a simmer.
I'm
a
adaptable.
simmer.
Are you? Okay.
Let it simmer. Let it simmer. Cool. Let cooler heads prevail, right? That kind of thing. Which is really all code for I don't want to deal with that. Right? I don't want to deal with that. And of course, in my mind, I have this construct like not dealing with it's going to make it go away. And at this stage in the game, 45 years in, I have a full understanding that only makes matters worse, right?
But I think there's a balance there, right? Of the cooler heads prevail.
Well, and I've been burned by that, right? I woke up one day and I was like, okay, I'm going to be like Tyler Gould, and by golly, when the problem presents itself, I'm gonna get in there. And I've run out with the tail between my legs.
Oh yeah,
a couple of times. Like, well, never mind. I'm a simmer. I'm gonna let that simmer.
Yeah, as I said, through 24 years of experience, I've learned that sometimes letting something simmer's all right.
Hey, can we play a game? You love games.
I love games, man.
Right? You love some games. We're not really strangers, so don't worry. Relax.
That game was rough, but I did buy that game. It's sitting on my dining room table. We do it as a family. So thank you.
That's right. My kids went down.
Yeah.
My kids went down to your place and they came back and said, oh yeah, Tyler has that game.
Yeah. We purchased it after I got grilled right here on RMIT.
All right, here's the game. Kind of like word association. Like, I just need you to run with this. Okay. Your task. And this is not my game. I've seen this on social media, right? Guy holding a sign saying, change my mind. Okay. Here's the game.
Yeah.
Tyler Gould. And we'll get Aaron and Melissa in here too when they join in. Change my mind. All right. I'm going to have a saying. You're going to change my mind and tell me that that's not true.
All right. Yeah. This is going to be fun.
Man. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm hanging out with a guy today and he's concerned. He's putting off blood work because he doesn't want to know the results. And he says the time-tested adage, ignorance is bliss.
Oof.
Change my mind, Tyler Gould. Can I just live in the ignorance is bliss camp?
Oh my gosh. Well, here's my thought on that, right? Because I think the easy way out of things is to say ignorance is bliss, because it requires no action on your part.
And
right?
Bliss is such a great word.
Absolutely. Yeah. It sounds wonderful, right? Zero action and it sounds wonderful. So why not go there? But so if we just take your friend's circumstance, right? He's got some blood work ordered. He doesn't want to do it because what he doesn't know is probably better than what he's going to know. But here's the thing that I always think about. Like, if you do nothing, what the possible outcome could be, right? You could be diabetic. You could be whatever that is, right? You know that if there's no action taken, it's these things. But if you take the action, you see what the problem is, you have the opportunity to attack it and change what the future looks like. I'm a believer in that, man. Like I am one who wants to know what the problem is right out of the gate. You show it to me.
You've never shirked from knowing something, hanging on to the thought that ignorance is bliss.
No, that thought, ignorance is bliss, has entered my mind millions of times. All right.
And it's pleasing to the carnal mind, right?
Absolutely. But I always have that thought in the back of my head that if I know what the problem is, then I can at least try to come up with some kind of solution for it, right? So if it's health, if it's relationship, if whatever it is, I want to know. And so right now,
yeah. If you are doing something that is driving Miss Ricky bonkers,
yeah,
and she is biting her tongue every time it happens,
yeah,
and you're walking around la 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 bliss land, you would rather want to know.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, but there have been many times in my relationship where I have been told things and I've thought and I've said, what are you talking about, man? This has been my way. So, but yeah, I would rather know, because I don't, I'd like to fix that, man. I'd like to jump on it.
Well, I think you have changed my mind, right? So the path of least resistance, based on your conversation, that highway of least resistance where the masses are heading.
Yeah.
One of the billboards on that path reads, "Ignorance is bliss."
Yeah. Amen.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna bring Aaron and Melissa Englebright into the conversation. We'll do one more round of
Let's
change my
let
mind.
them solve some problems, because I'm a little unsettled about my answer, man. Hey, what's going on, Englebrights?
Oh,
How are you?
Plural. Aaron and Melissa Englebright. Welcome to the richest men in town. How are you?
you're good.
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, welcome. So you kind of know the drill, but we've been having a little conversation. We've been a little all over the place, so we'll shelter you from some of that conversation. But we're playing a game. You guys look like you love playing games.
If you're gonna win or not.
Yeah.
The
Well,
game-
Kind of game.
this game is called Change Mike's Mind. All right. So I'm going to throw a saying out there. I'm going to throw something out there, and you change my mind.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
And Tyler, feel free to play along.
I'm going to duck and cover on this one. Good luck, Englebrights.
All right. Having a conversation with someone and they're done. Right? This show's about being better. This show's about being okay with the gap between who we are and who we want to be. Having a conversation with someone and this person says, I am what I am, right? It's too hard to change. I quit. Change my mind.
Well, what are they quitting, Mike?
I'm
talking
done
about
listening to your podcast. I'm done trying to be this person, right? I'm
Right.
done trying to lose weight. I'm done trying to do the things that I know I need to be doing. And I can't. I am what I am. This is me. Take it, leave it. I'm done trying.
You guys want to jump on that one, or do you want me to go first? I'll swing at that. I don't know.
Maybe if I start, I would say that I've felt myself in situations where I've felt like throwing my arms up and just saying, you know what, this is hard. And this change, especially in times that I've tried to change and it's not happening, right? It's gone a week, it's gone a month, it's gone 6 months and things aren't improving. I'm just saying it's too much. And so I've been there before, but to that person, what I would say is there's always a sunrise after darkness. Just hold on. You never know what the next day will bring. And that next day could be completely different, right? The heavens might be closed to you, might not feel like God's answering you. You might just be done. I'm crying already, you guys. Jeez. You might
We
feel like
lasted 30 seconds.
you might feel like
You know what? I'm done.
I
Aaron
love
Englebright. You've changed my mind.
Okay, I love that answer, dude.
I love that answer.
I love that answer. So, Melissa, weigh in on that. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say it's okay to feel that way.
Yeah,
There's no shame in that.
yeah,
And I feel like God will just wait for us until
Yeah.
we're ready to soften into his love. And like it's okay. He's patient. And
yeah.
and we've been there. Like 100% we've been there. And it's okay to be there for a while.
I agree.
Well, I'm not only listening to that, Melissa, I love that answer and I love those thoughts, guys. And I'm not just listening as the individual who may have said that from time to time. I'm listening to that as an individual who may love people who say that from time to time.
Yeah.
And how powerful that is for me to say, it's okay, right? Back off on this, take the foot off the gas, and it's okay. Just lovingly be patient with that person. Right? Because our timeline, I love the idea of God waiting. That's an interesting idea, because this microwave mindset that we've been in, that we unfortunately live our life at this pace, we expect that to be the case in every aspect of our life. Okay, I want to change.
I would say too, Mike, that that idea of patience. I love that idea. And I think that maybe, we extend that patience to ourselves, right? Because there's times where we get in this, and I'll speak for myself, right? I get in this mode where I should be here, or I should be this, or I should have accomplished these things. And I've got this timeline that I've built for myself, and it's not hitting like I think it should. And so it's easy to be discouraged in that space, right? Oh, yeah. And so patience, standing back and me saying, well, I'm going to be patient with this person. I love that. But I think sometimes we have to be able to step out of ourselves a little bit and say, hey, it's okay. There is no timeline, right? There is no timeline. Whenever I hit those marks, I hit those marks. As long as we're plodding along the path, like that's the important thing.
I think there's a question that I've found that I've asked myself when I've come up against weaknesses that just seem like they're going to be there forever. And I don't think we're alone in this in the scriptures with Paul. He talked about a weakness, right? A thorn in the flesh, and trying to get rid of that thorn in the flesh, right? This timeline of just, hey, I need to get rid of this. And I don't know that ever went away. I'm not sure that we know exactly what it was, but sometimes it's sitting back and saying, you know what, this thing that I'm hitting up against, maybe I need to learn from it. Yeah. Maybe God given me this weakness to help other people. Maybe he's given it to keep me humble. Maybe he's given it because my kid might have a similar weakness and I'll help them. To sit back and say, maybe why isn't that answer coming?
Yeah.
Well, and then to remember that when you are in a place, I don't know if you've ever been in a place before where maybe you are having a conversation with a son, or you are having a conversation with somebody about that thing that used to be your kryptonite, and it isn't anymore. And right then heaven rains down on you like, hey, look at where you are, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually was having a conversation with someone that I've known for a while who, had confided in me in some things years ago. And I remember telling him that same thing, Mike, hey, look, at some point in time, this will be in the rearview mirror, but you'll come up against someone who will have the same thing. And you're going to be the guy that's going to be able to say, hey, this is where I've been, and let me tell you how that looked. And so we were having this conversation, and he said, hey, you know what? I wanted to tell you that I actually have had the opportunity to have conversations with people about that thing that you and I talked about. And the fact that I was there was the only way I was able to speak intelligently about how they can get past that.
And you know what the speech is in that setting? It's 100% God is good. Jesus Christ's grace is sufficient, right? Like that's how how your friend is able to have that conversation. Yeah. And it's not like, look at me, look at how great I am. It's like, put it all in, put your trust there, and be patient with yourself. It's almost like that, that quote, time multiplies what it feeds.
Right.
Or, what you feed it.
Right.
And it's like, can we just experience some, we all understand in our financial world, I don't understand it enough, but like the idea of compound interest, right? A little bit over a long period of time puts us in a different spot. It's funny. We don't apply that to our own life, to our own selves, to our growth, to our spiritual development. Aaron, you mentioned Paul. I think Saul, and I want my road to Damascus. I want it now. I want the scales off. Here we go. Right.
Yeah. But the question is, do you want the word what brought him on that road? Do you know what I mean?
Of course I don't.
Like that's the thing. We always look at what the end result is and we go, that's what I want. And we erase all of the nightmare that happened up to that point. Right.
So
that
true.
Brought someone through that. And I love the idea, Aaron, you said, well, I've been there. Like sometimes I want to throw my hands up and say I'm done. And I think that there's so much, I think that's a powerful moment. Yeah. To be in a position where we throw our hands up and say, I'm done, because it forces us to rely on something bigger than we are. Right. I mean, if we're in that space, I have exhausted all tools at my resource. Right. And now I have to turn to something else and see what's there. And there's a lot of power in that real, humble, moment where we have everything stripped away, right? When Saul's on the road to Damascus, right? And he's about to receive that blessing where the scales fall, right? There's everything that happened up to that point is key, right? That we can't delete any of those elements. They had to happen to get him there, to have that softened up inside, ready to accept. And man, it's funny because we talk about it now almost celebratory, right? Like, oh yeah, those moments. But in the middle of that moment, forget it, man. If you gave me a pass, I'd take it. You know what I mean? Like, I would have taken it. In fact, if it happens tomorrow, which it will happen again further down the road, I'm sure of it at some point. And if someone said, Tyler, hey, there's a pass that will get you out of that, I might take you up on it, you know, even knowing the good that comes from it. I don't know. That's hard.
I do think that those moments are powerful, though. I think, as a human race, when we hit up against those times, that things are just bigger than us, because all of us are going to hit those times.
Yeah.
Human, right? Where our own ability is not going to get us above that.
Yeah.
We're truly going to need the grace of God, an enabling power to lift us above it. And so I do think it's a powerful time that people start looking around saying, what can I lean on for help? Because by myself, I can't do this.
And who to lean on, right?
Yeah.
Like who to rally, who to get in your corner. Because I really think there are two responses to that. And I don't know what camp you guys are in. When Mike Freeman falls apart, Mike Freeman calls someone.
Yeah.
Right. Mike Freeman calls friends. Hey, Bishop. Hey, other people head to the bunker. Right. And they're like, no, nobody can know what I'm going through. And it's like, how's that working?
But the thing about that is that's a hard thing, because I'll be honest with you. I'm 46 years old, and it's taken me a lot of, and I still struggle with just being able to just lay that out for somebody. Like my first reaction is, all right, I can handle anything and I can fix this. Yeah. Like the pronoun is I, right? It's I can do this, and I will take it on my shoulders and I will fix it. I'm not a sharer by nature, like I'm a saddle up the backpack, load it up, 400 pounds. All right, cool. Let's go. and it's not healthy in any way. So I'm 46 and now I load up my backpack typically to the 400 pound limit, and I'm getting crushed. And then I turn to my wife and say, I need help, And that's
the crazy thing
how
is,
it goes.
The crazy thing is you're rocking that 400 pound backpack. You're walking through the halls in church figuratively. I don't know what, maybe you guys are down there. I don't know. But like, and people are like, hey, Tyler, how's it going? You're like, I'm fine.
Absolutely. 100%. I'm good. Life is great.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I think I have believed the lie that if I'm doing the things that I should be doing, then I shouldn't. Like I should be able to get through it on my own.
Talk to me. Yep.
Yeah. So what's the transition where you say, because I guess I feel like I'm with you, Melissa, and I'm definitely a work in progress trying to figure out that I can't do it alone. So where are you at with that? Like, how does that transition happen?
Well, years ago, we ended up in therapy. And it was weird. Like we're having kind of a personal crisis. And then at the same time, I'm having this spiritual crisis because I'm feeling completely broken, because I think I never would have said this out loud. I never thought I thought this until I am just feeling this shame because I feel like I have disqualified myself in some way. Like if I would have been more I think I thought that righteousness was some kind of immunity for suffering.
Oh man. Yeah.
Like if I do these things, then I can jump into water and not get wet.
Yeah.
And I can, because everybody shares stories about how they found the gospel and then it saved them from all this suffering and all this pain. So then to be in the middle of all the suffering and the pain with the gospel made me feel like this extra level of broken.
I love that. Yeah.
Just qualification from
how much time you got, Englebrights, because that is some deep water, right? I mean, Tyler and I have spoken before. Hold on really quick. Before I leave this segment with my good friend, Tyler Gould, I will tell my millions of listeners, minus millions, a couple thousand, a couple hundred, right? 3, I don't know.
My wife's listening, maybe. Yeah.
Tyler Gould, there have been times when I have been literally in my closet. Literally. Step 1, pray. Step 2, call Tyler Gould. You know those moments. I know those moments. I cherish those moments, man.
Yeah.
And I really do. If there are people that are listening, get your Tyler Gould, right? Don't get the order right.
Yeah.
Get the order right. I'm not calling Tyler first, right? And this is also implying that even before I'm going to God, I'm talking to my wife, right? I mean, we are experiencing this together. But to the people that are listening, I didn't want to pass that conversation without acknowledging that there are people that are and it's not like they have the answers, right? Yeah. But they're there,
and you know what's
interesting? They're just holding it. They're just holding it.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting too is just to I think that that everybody thinks that, at least I do, right? Sharing that is going to be the hardest, most painful thing, right? And it's weird because in logically we understand that most people have felt something similar to where I'm at, but being able to verbalize that and share that with someone is hard. But when we do, oh my gosh, what a huge relief, right? When I can call Mike or I'm sitting with my wife and I finally just start unpacking, right? And then it's just like, oh yeah, there is someone who understands and can help and maybe not even help, but can listen, right?
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, we talk about like, oh, I don't know, those folks, I think like, oh, that guy could never understand. Why? How do you think he became where he's at?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Oh, he's way put together to be able to even get where I'm coming from. It's like, there's a process, and you got to go through the process to get where they're at, or it's a sham.
Yeah, right.
I mean, and I think that there's something there too.
Yeah.
Melissa, go ahead.
And then you need to talk about the process once you're past it, because then everybody else just continues to feel alone.
Yeah.
Well, I love poking at some of those myths and lies, Melissa, that you were talking about, right? And we've had some conversations with people just about this life and experience, and I really want to make sure that people understand that there is no immunity. Yeah. Like I can remember saying to people, live right, feel right.
Yeah.
I apologize to anybody I ever said that to.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, I remember like, oh, medication, oh, professional doctor. Come on. It's called the scriptures. You got the word, read the word, put the word in your heart, go put it in action. And it's like, what am I doing to the gospel of Jesus Christ?
Well, right? And thank goodness for the Holland talk, like a broken vessel, right? Because he talks about that, right? Like we want to use the spiritual tools and resources that we have at our disposal, but we want to use everything that we have, right? Doctors, medication, whatever it takes. We got to be healthy, right? We got to put ourselves into place. But to go back to your point real quick, Melissa, I think about talking about it too. I think that once we've been through things, I'm a big believer in transparency and vulnerability, right? Like we have to be willing we can't suffer these big events that help us turn corners and then go sit silently on our hands and not tell anybody about what it took to turn the corner. I mean, sometimes that blows my mind. It's like, I've gone through it and here someone's, bearing their soul, talking about how much pain they're in. And in my mind, I'm going, yeah, I've been there, buddy. You know what I mean? But it's like, why am I not going up there and saying, hey, put my arm around someone and saying, look, I've been there. And it's good. Like you said, Aaron, the sun will rise, When
you're going through it though, it is interesting because you do feel this isolation, like somehow we feel we're unique, right? In this suffering, Like nobody's gone through this. Nobody's had this problem. And how dare I, be vulnerable and speak about this?
Yeah.
Because it's
Almost like we're burdening someone, right?
And maybe it's male culture too, right? There's kind of
Yeah.
this macho, like independent, I'm going to take care of myself. I got this. I don't need other things. And that makes us, I don't know, makes us, I guess, be vulnerable, but we're built for that. We're built for connection.
Right?
Oh
man,
wired
for struggle, right? We're wired for struggle, and so this is a completely unorthodox episode of Richest Men in Town, Tyler. Like we are throwing script and format out the window. Usually about 20 minutes ago, I would have told you why I love these people.
Yeah.
Right.
I already know. We just talked and I'm like, I know it's apparent.
But Aaron just hit on why I love the Englebrights, because there is a problem where we don't necessarily let people in on things. And I'm not saying oversharing, right? But we understand that there's power when we acknowledge that we don't have it figured out. And I love church with Aaron and Melissa Englebright. We're pouring some out for you over here in California because you guys have left the Golden State and you are now living out in Cedar City, right? And of course we're happy for you, but we miss you terribly. But when you guys are in church and you have an opportunity to speak or teach or share, I think people feel permission to be real. Right. And I'm not saying that to like pump you guys up. I'm just like, you have the ability to be able to like, hey, can we talk for a second? Because I really need to understand this principle because I'm doing work, right? Like Tyler, like our friend Gary Miller, we go to church, we're doing work. Mm-hmm. We're working on us. And I just love that. And you guys have been on the short list, as potential Richest Men in Town guests, and so I'm just elated to have you guys here tonight, and I wanted you to understand that that's where that's coming from, because I'm sure, I know you guys, that invitation probably struck you as weird.
Yeah, we appreciate you saying that. It did. When the invitation came, for me, it was more of, why? what could we really teach, and what do we have to share? And I still, when I've talked to you about this, Mike, is I feel like I am such a work in progress. I'm constantly making mistakes and trying to get better, and then making mistakes again, right? And so that's the struggle, right? But the
I don't know, Aaron, I can't relate to that at all. I don't know what you're talking about.
But go ahead, Melissa.
I'm happy to accept, like I'm happy to be the poster child for people who don't have it figured out.
We're just happy, Melissa. We're just happy that you're here, because now we can kind of get the truth. You know what I mean? Like sometimes we have the guys in and they're spinning this picture, and it's like, it'd be wonderful if we had the wife in every conversation, because it'd be like, oh, let me tell you how that really went down.
Yeah.
I want to get into your beginnings, right? I want to get into your faith background and your journeys, but I got to hit on two things that Melissa said in that opening. Can you talk a little bit about shame? When I say shame, what comes to mind? How do we address that and beat that? And then I would love to know the journey leading into the decision to go into therapy. Because Tyler and I, we're on record. I think we've got it on record saying everybody needs that, and we're trying to use our little tiny platform to say, hey, there's no, we don't understand where that stigma comes from, right? They're trained to give you tools to help you through tough times. So could you talk a little bit about shame and how that road led you to therapy, both of you?
Yeah. Maybe I'll just talk about shame. And I love Brene Brown. I think you guys have probably read her books. When I was going through some struggles, everybody kept saying, read Brene Brown. And so I finally did. And that's what she talks about. She says, as humans, we're built for being connected, for making these connections, not living independent, not doing it all on ourselves. And shame really is the belief that there's something flawed about me that will make it so people don't want to connect with me, that they're not going to like me. If they truly knew who I was, if they saw my soul, that they're going to say, whoa, that Aaron Englebright, I don't want anything to do with him. And it's a lie, I think, that a lot of us believe. And so we hold those trials, those struggles back because, again, we feel like we're more flawed than anybody else, which if we just shared those with other people, I think we'd hear them say, you know what, I went through the same thing. You know, when we went through our struggles, I had a brother that called me. He called me every day, every week. And he just said, hey man, how's it going? You know, I'm thinking about you. And it wasn't like this like message, but it was this, hey, I feel like you're valuable. I've gone through this same thing. And it was powerful for me at a time that I had completely given up on myself. I just didn't feel like I had much left going. And I didn't want him to call. Every time he called, I was like, should I take the call? Should I not? And I'd take it and be like, hey, Adam, how you doing? He'd be like, how you doing, brother? Where you at? How's therapy going? Yeah, I went through therapy too. This is what we learned. And just to have that person to relate to was incredible for me. I'll always be grateful for my brother in doing that. He still calls me. Anytime there's a problem, he's the first one to call. And he was the last one I expected to call me, I think. You know, I didn't know that he had gone through those struggles, but totally helped me. I'll share one other experience. Can I fast?
Yeah.
Your time.
Talk about getting into therapy, but we kind of hit a point in our marriage where we just knew things were they just weren't working. And it was a struggle. It was a real low point. And I hit a point again that I'd given up on myself. This is before I talked to my brother, and I decided I'm going to take a step back from church. I'm just going to try to do this on my own, like we talked about, just feeling sorry for myself and feeling bad and feeling unlovable. And we had friends, the Thompsons, they're in Reading. They'd be a great couple for you guys to interview, Shelly and Nate. And they came over. This is right in the heat of this, when things were going on. And they knocked on our door, and I hid. I literally hid in my kitchen. And I said, I'm not coming out. I'm not going to come out and say hi. Like, I feel like so unworthy. I don't even want to talk to anybody. And Shelly and Nate, they just pushed their way into the door. How you guys doing? Walked into the door, and I was hid around the corner. You can't even see me. And I'm just sitting there saying, please go away. I don't want to see you guys. And she came around the corner and she looked at me and she just said, I'm going to hug you. And you don't have a choice. And she just gave me a big hug. And at a point where I felt my lowest, I felt this love from friends, and Nate the same.
And she held you.
Like I felt like I had given up, and she just held me. She didn't say a word, and I felt loved. And it was powerful for me. I couldn't do that. I wouldn't push myself in the door. I don't think I would have been at the door. And she changed the course for me. It made me believe that I was lovable. Anyway.
Well, change your course. That's our language, right? We call that a hinge moment. And I thank you for letting us in on that moment. Physically hiding yourself.
It was.
I mean, I'm just thinking as you're sharing these thoughts, both of you sharing these thoughts on shame, we know who's the father of that.
Yeah.
Right? Disconnect, hide, right? I'm the mistake, because that's Brene Brown, right? The crux of shame is, you know, we all make mistakes. Shame says you're the mistake.
Yeah.
And I think that we know whose territory you were in when you were hiding from the Thompsons in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So have you ever played that out in your mind and like, what happens if that hug doesn't happen?
It's scary for me to think. I mean, I'd go to say, I mean, it's strong to say I feel like it saved my life. I mean, I feel like it brought me from a really dark place to say, and they knew our story, right? And they could still love me. You know, they knew the hurt that had happened to our family, and they could still say, you know what? I don't care. I love you. You know, I love you as a friend. It hasn't changed. And that was incredible for me.
God, that's a lower light. That's a lower light, right? That is just straight up disciple of Jesus Christ, trying to be like Jesus Christ, acting as he would. At the end of our lives, when we're presented to be judged, that line is going to come out of Jesus Christ's mouth, right? I know you and I still love you. Right? I know who you are. I know everything about you.
Yeah.
And you're worthy of my love. Man, that's powerful. That's powerful. So how do you face that? Where does the courage to fix it come from?
Yeah.
Well, I would just say, just to back up a little bit, like you asked about shame, I feel like we kind of, I don't know what the phrase would be. We just lived in a lot of shame from our marriage. We got married really young. I came from a background where no one ever fought. I remember seminary teachers saying, as long as you have the gospel, you should never fight and you should never argue. And I felt
thank you, seminary teacher.
I mean, he was actually lovely. I loved the seminary teacher.
Right.
He probably genuinely didn't fight. And so I was like, challenge accepted, like, okay. and then we had this marriage that we loved, like we loved each other, but there was so much shame that if we argued, I felt like, well, there we go. Like it's broken and I don't know how to work through conflict. We had a lot of shame surrounding intimacy. We had a lot of shame surrounding, our marriage was making us smaller, less healthy people, but it was like stable and it looked okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived it for a very, very long time. But we were just reading about the story of the building of this Salt Lake Temple and how they built like a sandstone foundation for 4 years and then found cracks. And that's just what it was like for us. Like, oh, there's a little crack here, but it's fine. Like we'll plaster it. It's fine. And living that way for a really long time. And then you start to put more and more weight on it with children and life and then dealing with those cracks gets more and more threatening and more scary. And so we just lived in kind of a holding pattern for a really long time with still living in a lot of shame. So
yeah, I think with that story, right, I think if I understand it right, they had the foundation and they were building that, right? And then the US government came to look at this temple and see what the Mormons were doing. And so they had to tear down their construction, right? Get down to the foundation, cover it up. And when they looked at their foundation, they saw all these cracks in it. And Brigham Young said, this isn't going to work, right? I can't imagine working on a temple for 4 years to build that up, right? Sweat and tears. I mean, not like we have today. I mean, chisels, right? To look at that and say, not good enough. 4 years of work, that's not going to cut it for eternity. And I feel like for us, we'd gotten in a pattern from the time we first got married,
like day one,
that worked for us, where we would be disconnected and then come back together and connected. And then it's just a constant cycle of disconnection and connection.
Codependency, just not healthy.
And not letting each other shine, right? Really just kind of holding each other back and not recognizing how it could be better and saying, well, it's good enough. We're good. We've got a family. Look what we've built, but our foundation wasn't good, right? It wasn't good. And sometimes you don't know how to fix yourself. When you look at it, it's not so clear, the answers of where do we go from here? But it was around 2017, I think, in November, we went on a family reunion, and Melissa's grandpa had passed away, and just really stressful. We fought a lot. We fought all the way back to Redding, and I credit Melissa. I think she just in her heart knew this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work for the rest of our lives. It's not going to work for our kids. And so she came to that decision of, we need help, and we need it right away. And that to me, I mean, the feeling was more anger, I think at first. How could you say that? To me, therapy meant it's over, right? That this means that what we have built is not good enough. And it's, people go to therapy to get divorced, right? That was my thinking. And so it was a shock. I felt angry. I withdrew more, which just made things worse. Melissa was reaching out for people on her own, trying to get help, and me saying, I'm not getting help. I'm not going to do it. To a point where she really just had to put her foot down. She left, went to talk to our good bishop. I'll say his name because he was great in our story, Bishop Cooley. And I got a call. She said, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to take the kids and we're going to have to figure this out. And I had felt at that moment, again, just the lowest you could go. Like my whole world is going out the door right now. Right. And the decisions I make right now are going to make and break, what I have. And so I made my way over to the bishops where Melissa was, and we had a conversation and a talk, and I kind of set our course to say, we got to fix this. And I acknowledged it, and I think that got us going to therapy.
And then in therapy, I was like, how long is this going to take? Like a few months? Like, can I pencil in? Like, we just need a couple of skills and we'll be good. No.
Because you're talking foundation, Mike? Right? You're talking foundation repair.
If your situation that you're describing is not unique. And I think, if we were in a room full of couples, right, and we all were honest and we stripped away pride and we said, hey, let's just talk, I think everybody could lay bare some really tough moments, right? And I think there's probably a lot of people that can relate and say, well, yeah, I've been at sort of the precipice of this thing falling apart. What would you say to a couple that finds themselves in that situation where they see their relationship kind of teetering on falling apart, or they can reach out and get help? Because you said, Aaron, you said, well, my thought was therapy is where people go to get divorced. And I think there's a lot of people that would agree with that sentiment. And Mike and I have talked to other people on this show that have talked about their experience in therapy and how it was, it saved them and it saved their relationships. But what would you say to that couple that says, hey, I think we're in a place where it's irreparable and I don't know what to do other than to walk away?
Yeah. Well, I have a name and a number that I would pencil down. Leslie Hawes, she saved us, and I would give it to them
it.
and say, go, you got to talk to this lady. You got to go see her.
And there's answers. That's what I remember the first session, her just saying, oh yeah, so this is your cycle. This is what you do. Okay. We've had the same version of the same cycle for 16 years. And she was like, oh, able to just nail down and normalize what's going on and then just give us answers. Oh, this is why I'm stuck in this pattern. And this is the shame that's driving the disconnection. And this is, it's not like it was a quick fix, but immediately we at least had answers and explanation for why we were so stuck.
And I think I got into it. If I were talking to someone, another guy that was thinking about doing it, I think I had this perception that I was going to go and just be lectured, like this is everything you're doing wrong,
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't find that in the therapy that we did. That wasn't it. So I came kind of, crossing my arms and I'll listen kind of a thing, but I just learned that she was there to give us tools, things that could help us build true intimacy. And I don't mean physical intimacy, but really find each other, right? And connect on a way deeper level than we ever had. And so I think everybody's situation is different, right? I think there are certain times that, I wouldn't tell everybody that they just have to, hold on forever depending on situation, because I think it is different. But I think therapy is definitely worth a shot, and not just hey, we'll try this as a last ditch effort, or we're going to do this just to, satisfy everybody and say that we've done it. But to go with an open heart, you know, therapy can help us. It can really help us. I think if we wouldn't have done it, I think Chuck Cooley is the greatest guy, but I think if we would have just relied on scriptures and Bishop, I don't think we would have made it. We needed more skills. We needed outside help. And it's almost unfair to the bishop to think that, you know, he could do all of that.
No, he's an orthodontist.
Yeah.
Well,
That's right. Yeah, Mike, I don't know about you, but I mean, I would tell people all the time that would come into my office. Here's where I'm coming from, but let's talk. Let's get you in front of someone that really knows how to.
Back to that Holland message.
Yeah.
All tools on the table.
All tools, man. Melissa, you had a thought on that?
Yeah.
Therapy will not make any difference until you get in your own boat and do your own work. Because we were so codependent and enmeshed. It was like, well, if he does this, then I'll be okay. And if I do this, he'll be okay. And once, I mean, she
own your stuff.
Get in your own boat.
Yeah.
Like, I can be okay and I can work on me regardless of how he's doing. And it might get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got to ask, well, number one, I commend you for your courage in sharing this, but so much more so in living that story, right? Two hypotheticals. I've been a bishop, right? I am wondering what is going through Aaron Englebright's mind on his ride over to the bishop, on his drive over. And I'm wondering what's going on in Melissa's brain if Aaron doesn't make that drive. Like, you're literally on life support.
Yeah.
And you are subject to, if that drive doesn't happen. And again, too, it's not like the bishop has humility pills that he gives you when you walk in.
Yeah.
Somewhere you've got to shed that.
Yeah.
And that is so remarkable to me, but I'm just curious, like, Melissa, were you there? Like, were you at the end of the rope, and was it you're done? And Aaron, how do you get in that car and drive over to the bishop's?
I was still thickly in denial at that point. I just knew we needed help. So I really genuinely thought we just need some skills and we'll be okay. We're fine. We're fine. Again, that I'm fine kicks in really easily with me. But I just knew, like, I can't be here anymore right now the way it is.
Yeah. I don't know, Mike. I think it's one of those out of body, experiences. Like the drive over, I don't even remember the drive, right? And she had friends that were there, and I remember passing them, and I mean, to be honest, I just felt this huge amount of shame. But I think the drive, initially it was, I want my kids. I can't imagine thinking of a life without these 4 boys. And like, I'd do anything, to keep myself with them. So probably initially that, and then just trying to acknowledge that, what, I've got to own this. I've got to own the things that I've done. I've been running, right? And that's exhausting. It's like carrying that 40-pound pack. I've been running from this forever, and I don't want to run. I'm tired, right? And so to talk with the bishop, I don't think Chuck said much. He just sat and I think he listened and said, "What do you guys want to do?" I mean, it was more just getting us in the same room together, and then talking
and probably to recognize the stakes, right?
Yeah,
stakes are pretty high.
Yeah.
I was gonna go. I had prayed a secret prayer months and months prior. Like, I had started to just see the cracks, like clearly couldn't unsee them. And I had gone out into a little sacred part into our forest that, like, I was completely cocooned. I called it my little sacred grove. And I remember praying like a scary prayer, one of those prayers that you're like, oh boy, I don't know if I want this answered. But I just prayed and said, Heavenly Father, I want what's real, even if it's messy, not fake and perfect anymore. And so as this was happening, I just had the phrase, this is a holy demolition. The phrase, the holy demolition was what I just saw his hand in all of it. And then we had a literal, like, a forest fire burn down our property. We had mold in our house. We had roof problems. We had foundation problems. Like, the metaphor could not have gotten any
The house didn't
clearer.
fall. The house didn't fall, right? That fire burned a ring around our house, the car fire I'm mentioning. So we get into therapy, right? That happens, and that fire happens, and we found it kind of to be a metaphor. Everything around the house and even parts of the house, right? But still, the house was good. We were able to build on it.
And I had said we were probably, I'm sorry for jumping ahead too much.
No, keep
Go.
We had been in therapy for like 6 months at this point, and we had finally kind of gotten into our own boats, but then it was getting messier and messier and messier. And I was at Whiskey Town Lake watching a plume rise in the distance when car fire started, saying to my friend, I don't know if this is going to work. And we had both kind of gotten to that point where we didn't know if it was going to work, but kind of in a necessary way, because for our whole marriage, I had been like, divorce is never an option. Divorce is never an option. When you don't have options, you can't make choices. So I could never really choose him unless I had the choice to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we both had kind of gotten to that point where we were like, we don't know if this is going to work. And then a few days later, we were evacuated from our house. We were told the house was burning down our neighborhood. And I remember thinking, if the house goes, maybe it's time. Maybe we need to be done. And then 90% of the homes in our area burned down. Every house on our street burned down. And our house survived.
Yeah, and in that time, so we had gone 6 months, and I'd say at the start of therapy, it was kind of standoffish, and then, okay, I'm going to do the work, and I was meeting with her a couple times a week. Even felt like I was really working, and trying to put my soul into it and trying to change. But I think my focus is on, I'm going to change for her. And when we get 6 months in and it's still not feeling like, like it's working, I did have a period of time where I'm like, I don't know what else to do, of throwing my hands up, like we talked about earlier, of saying, I don't think this is going to get better. And then to me, a prompting came that just said, this isn't about necessarily you, right? The problems that you have, you're going to carry into any relationship that you go into. I think in my mind, and I think this happens, is we think that maybe if we're married to someone like this, then our problems just go away. They'll fix those things. But you carry, the short temper that I have, I'm going to carry that with me into the next marriage. And so this work became more about, this is a work that I need to do, right? It's not just to please somebody. It's not just to appease somebody, but it's God. Yeah, it's a godly work, and it could be the work for the rest of my life, but it's a work that I need to do.
You talk about having these moments where, hey, this may not happen. What keeps you pushing through the process? Because I think that's right. That's a hard thing, right? You feel like you've done the work, or you're doing the work, and we want to see the results, right? They need to be tangible. We got to see what's happening. And if it's not happening in a timeline that we've constructed, then it's like, well, then forget it. So what keeps you pushing forward when you're not seeing the results that you think you should be seeing during that process?
For me, I kept spinning out in so much panic at the what ifs. And finally just letting myself believe that I will know what I need to do when I need to do it. And then it will be okay. It'll be the next right thing to do. And to really take it like a breath at a time, to breathe. Right now, I need to just be here with my family right now. And then trusting that if that needs to change at any point, I'll know, and I can trust that, and just literally take it a day at a time. And also that God speaks to me in metaphor. And so our house survived. And everybody was like, oh, it's a miracle. Your house survived. It looked like a war zone. It was so devastating. This forest that was so sacred to me was black. And we had years and years of messy, messy cleanup in front of us. And so it was helpful to just realize that it's a messy miracle. And I remember watching Aaron out on our land, like day after day after day with a chainsaw and burn piles. And he's hefting these huge limbs and logs bigger than himself onto the fire. And I just felt like, okay, this is gonna, once we could kind of have the option of maybe this won't work out, the fire was the most horrible gift of a metaphor to just realize we're surrounded in a mess and it's going to take generations for this to look beautiful again. I mean, at least years to
But
look.
it will look beautiful again.
But it's the work that's ours to do.
Yeah. I love that.
I'd say for me, and you guys use that analogy of that backpack, as I started working through repentance process and working with Chuck Cooley, which he was so great, right? I expect a lecture from him too. And he was like, so when are we going to go to lunch? You know, that was his response to me, you know, just love me along. And it felt like as I went through and worked on problems, it was like just unloading a rock, another rock, right? And so it just gives you that confidence to say, okay, I got this, right? I can keep going. I'm going to work on this. Just small little incremental goals that over time just made me feel lighter and lighter. I mean, to a point where I met with Chuck and I said, what else can I do? You know, like he told me, I feel like you've done what you need to do, Aaron. There's not anything left that you need to do. You just need to forgive yourself and keep working. And it was like this relief, honestly, like just weight off of my shoulders. And it felt amazing because these are things that, again, it's not just in marriage that I've been running from. It was running from them for my whole life, you know. And when he told me that, I was calling high school friends that I offended. Like I wanted to just get rid of it all. Like I was like, why have I not done this before? Because this is forgiveness, right? This is a great feeling. And so I was emailing people. I was just getting rid of all those things. It felt amazing for me.
Aaron, can I ask really quick? Can I ask a question? We may be running. Tyler, Mike, listeners, right? What would you say to those that are running away from it? Right? Like what does it, like I love the analogy of the foundation on the Salt Lake Temple. I picture workers before they had to bury it. I picture workers walking by and seeing cracks and be like, well, it'll be all right. Brigham knows what he's doing, right? Yeah. It'll be all right. Prophet's infallible. Like, here we go. You know, but like, I mean, I think that we've often talked about, Tyler and I have talked about the self knows. Yeah. And when we don't want to hear what the self says, we surround ourselves with noise, right? Or we numb ourselves, or we do those things that are going to shut that self up, because the self is going to tell you, you got to change this thing that you're doing, this way of being, the way you're treating, right? And I want to acknowledge too, Chuck Cooley is an amazing person who is administering the medicine called the atonement of Jesus Christ. Yeah. Right. That's what bishops do. And when we repent, we exercise faith in Jesus Christ. And that is where that liberating feeling comes from. Yeah. But as you look back, what were you doing to promote that running? What were you doing to avoid dealing with it?
Well, can I say this with just numbing, and then I'll tell you what I did. I think there's a lot of ways to numb, and I do feel like it works for a while, right? It's a temporary way. Alcohol, drugs, pornography, you know, there are many things.
But that's not what you were doing.
Binging on, and I'm not. I'm not
Thanks
married.
for that clarification.
I sin,
But it is human nature
For sure.
to numb.
Right? So you could turn to that. But she brought up, she tapped me on the shoulder about a story when I went out for a run. And when I was running, a dog started chasing me. It was one of these like big husky dogs. It looked like a wolf. And I was terrified. And so my 4-mile casual pace turned into this sprint. And the more I ran, the more fear built, right? Because I can't see how close it is. It's just nipping at my heels. And I'm like, I'm going to die. And then I felt like this courage come on that like, I can't keep running. It's not going to work. He's going to catch me. And so I just planted my feet and I turned around and I was ready. I was just like, come on. And that dog put the brakes on and just took off the other way. I felt like in my life, that's the way. When you run, right? When you turn your back and run, things always seem scarier. You're not looking at them, right? You don't have the light turned on them. And when you don't have that, I feel like they just seem huge. But when you turn and face them, sometimes it's like that schoolyard bully. When you turn and face him, he's not that tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You look at that problem and you say, I can do this. It's not as bad as I thought. So I don't know, that gave me courage.
I love that. I love that analogy, right? I mean, I love the story, but I love that connection. It reminds me of something I recently read, Martin Luther King Jr., not referring to a national civil war, but an internal civil war.
Yeah.
Between healthy impulses and unhealthy impulses, between that guy who we all want to be and that guy who we don't want anybody to know exists.
Yeah. And that idea of running, Mike, it's like, wherever I go, there I am. Right. I mean, we can turn and we can try to put ourselves in a different environment. We can move to a new state. We can get a new job. We could get a new spouse. We can do all of these things, but there I am, right? Every morning I look in the mirror and it's me. So if I'm not willing to make those changes, man, that's, you're in this, that's one of those lies that we tell ourselves that, well, if this changes, then I will be better. Or if this person does something different, then my life will be better. Yeah. But I was just talking to someone the other day and I said, man, I'm really trying with this person to change some things in our relationship and it's not working. And the common denominator in those conversations is me, right? So how am I going to change how I approach this thing and not hope that the next conversation just organically changes? They're just going to make some shift that changes everything, right? If we're not willing to look in the mirror. And I love that analogy about the dog, right? Because man, how many times have we turned tail and tried to sprint out the problem? Like, I'll outrun it. But when we turn around, that problem's still there until we're willing to stop and face it.
I'm reading Ryan Holiday's Stillness is the Key. Amazing book, right? Obstacle is the way, ego is the enemy, but stillness of the key is the key. He refers to this conversation, right, with student and the master, and the student says, where might I find Zen? Where might I find that state of peace and rest? And the master says, you're seeking for an ox while you are yourself on it. You are where you are, right? And then he goes on and says, we do not live in this moment. We, in fact, try desperately to get out of it by thinking, doing, talking, worrying, remembering, hoping, whatever. We pay thousands of dollars to have a device in our pockets to ensure that we're never bored. We sign up for endless activities and obligations. We chase money and accomplishments, all with the naive belief that at the end of it will be happiness. Remember, there's no greatness in the future, or clarity, or insight, or happiness, or peace. There's only this moment, right? Yeah. This moment with you, yourself, like Melissa said, in your own boat.
Yeah.
That's a powerful thought, because the myth is, we're in this boat together.
Yeah.
Right. And you think that's a good marriage. Like you become one.
Yeah.
And so he needs to read my mind and know my needs. And it's my responsibility to manage his feelings. And that feels like the most loving, selfless thing I could be doing.
Yeah. just so many misconceptions like that. That's what I always thought. If she really loved me, she would know what I needed. But I don't have to speak it. And then the resentment comes in because she doesn't.
Or you're keeping score. Well, that one time I knew what she needed, and it's like,
yes.
What is that?
And I've found that I am a guy that holds grudges, unfortunately. Like it just feels like it's in my DNA. And at times I've thought they help you, right? I listened to Michael Jordan's acceptance speech in the Hall of Fame, and it was all about who slighted him, right? This guy slighted me, and it made me. I think these grudges, I've always had this thing that
they light your fire.
But I don't think that grudges. I don't think that they're good. I think.
No, John, by the way, said that holding a grudge is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's the self-destructive nature of that grudge.
And the grudge that I would hold, it would be a justification then to do bad because she did this. I'm okay doing this because she didn't do this. And then you're just spiraling, right? You're just, you're drinking the poison.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're going to talk.
I was just going to say, I think if I could do anything over again, I wish younger me would have known I didn't have to wait for him, because I felt at the very beginning, I remember thinking we should go to therapy and get some help here with our communication and this and this and this, and what was I waiting for? You can start on yourself, because really that's all that you can control. And so you don't have to wait for your spouse. You can, there's plenty of healing to be had on your own.
Yeah.
I love that comment. I think, a lot of times we're waiting for someone else to initiate something, or we're waiting for this joint venture, right, to take place. And that doesn't need to be the case. I want to just comment for a second about this process, because I think this is important on a couple different levels. We talk about repentance, right? And we talk about that process and the change that happens through that. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, right? That when that process begins, we feel this immediate relief and we're able to move forward and move on. And I just I appreciate, Aaron, you talking about that sort of unloading one rock at a time, right? And kind of going through that and recognizing that, because I think the value in our conversation tonight is, for me, is that once again, we talk about the process, the hard work that it takes to get to the goal, right? I mean, I'm always thinking about that. Like, I bring this up a lot with Mike to Mike, but when we talk about Enos, right, and his conversion, he uses words like struggle and wrestle and these heavy words. And I think that it's important that we recognize that those good things that we're seeking to be forgiven, to be in a marriage that works, requires a ton of work and sacrifice on an individual level and together, right, as a couple.
But I love the idea of Melissa sharing honestly, like, okay, how long is this going to take?
Yeah.
Right? Like you sit down with your therapist, like, okay, how long is this going to take? And it's like, but how tempting is that? How tempting is that to be like, can I get the bare minimum so that we can get on with things because we got lives to live?
Yeah. And how many times have we asked ourselves that question? How long do I have to go through this?
Well, nobody likes to hear, right? It's like when Kelly comes out and I'm cleaning the garage and it's like, and I'll look at her and be like, oh no, this is it looks worse than, and it's about to get better stage, right? Because everything in my garage is in one pile and it's about to all be put into place. Nobody wants to hear, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
No,
nobody wants to hear that.
That's a terrible thing to hear. Melissa, go ahead.
and God will not rush the thing that will transform you. What kind of loving God would rush through that process and do shoddy work? When he's building something that's going to last, he will take his time.
All right. So I love that thought. Can we talk for a second about,
well, living things in growth take time.
Right. Can we talk about how the role of faith in this whole process and sort of, can we talk about that individually for you guys for a second, and then talk about that as a couple? Because I if we can do that, that would be great. I think I'd love to hear the role it played in your process and kind of how it got you to the point where you're willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go. I think the things that we're doing poorly, we know what we are doing badly, and the things we come back to, and the sin that, is the thorn in our side. I just read All Things New by the Givens, and they talk about sin rather than being something bad that you do. It is the thing you build up that blocks the love of God from reaching you.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, therapy was the process of realizing, what blocks have I put up since childhood? That I have these things that I've put up to protect me, to earn love. And how can we remove them one by one and heal these parts of yourself that need healing? Because when I'm super activated, that has very little to do with Aaron and a lot to do with a part of me that I have not listened to, that I have shamed, that I have hidden. And so therapy for me was a really sacred process of just becoming a whole embodied person, like reconnecting with these parts of myself that I had neglected and had been hurting for a really long time. And I had just been projecting onto Aaron and our relationship.
Yeah.
That could be another couple hours. I mean, I think of, like, as I'm hearing you say those things about the blocks, I think of the pavilion that covers, right? Where is the pavilion? And it's like, I think it's an I-ring talk, and it's like, we build the structures that block our access to God. And then in our crisis, we say, where are you? Where are you? You're not hearing me. You're not helping me. And he hasn't moved. He's never left. He's never left us. He can't get to us because we've severed the line, right? Or we've blocked with those, and I could see that process right now, just thinking in my own life, like, this thing happens, block. This thing, that hurt. Kind of like where we started, Tyler, talking before you guys got on, we started talking about pain.
Yeah.
And how we only learn through pain. And when it's unmitigated pain, when it's unmitigated trauma, we wall off parts of ourselves and we say, ooh, that hurt. I will not let anybody do that to me again. Therefore, I will not make that part of me available.
Yeah. Doesn't it make you think, though, like immediately, like when I hear that word pavilion, I can't help but think of DNC 121.
Exactly.
Right. And you have this sort of lament of the difficulties that are in your life. And then the answer is, hey, all of these things are for your good. And that's so hard to swallow.
If you endure it, if you endure it well.
Right. If you endure it well, right. But these are there for your good. That's sort of a hard thing to wrap your brain around. But man, what an interesting thought process, right? If we see that challenge and we can somehow figure out how to embrace it, even on the smallest level, and say, what am I supposed to learn from this thing? But that's I'm not there, you guys. I'll be honest,
but almost like, but almost turn into it.
Yeah.
Right. Lean into it and say, I got this. I know what's happening.
It's Alan Michael.
Like,
Poston
I can
method.
see through your game, and I'm not going to take that brick you're offering me, because I know that's going to allow me to hide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see
it's like Aaron in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see it as now less about weaknesses I need to overcome and rather pain that needs to be healed.
Yeah.
Can I bring up that 121 scripture? Because I read a book by Elder Holland, and he talked about, right, that's Joseph Smith in Liberty Jail.
Right.
The worst of conditions, right? The men couldn't even stand straight up, and it was freezing cold, and they were fed, I mean, just horrible food, maybe even poisoned, if I remember right.
Right.
Around, jail guards that abused them. And he talked about just how tough a time that was for Joseph, where Joseph was really searching and looking. But he talked about those experiences being temple experiences.
Yeah.
When I read that, I was like, whoa, I got to read that again. What do you mean temple? And he called it a prison temple experience, that through some of those worst times in our life, look at all the revelation. We all turn to those sections in D&C and we love them, right? And they're amazing sections. And we wouldn't have those probably if Joseph Smith didn't have to go through that experience, right, in Liberty Jail. And so I do think, and it may be easier with hindsight, we'll look back on times like we've gone through, or times in our life where there are trials, and say, that was a temple, that was a sacred experience. And it taught us what we needed to know.
Okay.
Well,
so Aaron, I got to ask this question. Sorry, Tyler, I beat you to it. Standing where you stand right now, would you do anything different?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was hesitant about therapy. I wish that I would have been on board. I think she would have done it a long time ago. Knowing what I know now, and we still check in with our therapist. The work's not done. I would have gotten in therapy sooner. I mean, beginning of our marriage, I wish we could have just sat down and learned how to communicate. I mean, she did simple things with us. It almost seems elementary, right? To sit down and be like, you two are separate humans, and this is how you talk. And she used this thing called my side of the bridge. And so she would say, this is how you talk about it. Melissa's going to share her side of the bridge, right? She's an individual with her own unique perspective. This is how I feel. And you're going to listen, and you're going to let her express everything that she feels. And then you're going to repeat it back to her and say, hey, what I hear what you're saying is this, this, and this. Do I have it right? Am I understanding? And then it goes to my side, right? And we've used those tools. I mean, those are tools that, again, I just wish we had early on in our marriage that we could have leaned on.
And I'm sorry, I want you to finish, but to realize that like his triggers have nothing to do with me. So if I've activated something in him, I don't have to react to that because it has very little to do with me. And if I'm all activated, it's not his fault. Like it's my job to settle that down and to get the tools I need to calm myself. Like he can't fix that in me.
Yeah. Because I feel like we'll try to, slip back into patterns, but now we have the language to say, hey, and she'll tell me, you need to get in your own boat. You're jumping in my boat. And I picture like scouts, right? Trying to do a canoeing merit badge and she'll tell me that, and I'll have to check myself and say, you know what? You're right. I am getting in your boat. I'm blaming you for this. I'm expecting this. And I need to work on myself.
But sometimes they'll be like, but I want to get in your boat.
How cute is that? So I guess, can we acknowledge then that you're not at this destination?
No.
Yeah. No.
Right. So for folks listening, it's not like, oh yeah, I listened to them and they did this and this and this, and they don't have any more problems and everything's cool.
No.
Right. It's like Tyler and I have talked, you climb one summit only to find 7 more summits.
Yeah.
Now we just have tools.
Yeah.
But I remember having a friend say therapy in a marriage is like the parachute cord. So if one person says, hey, I think we need to check in with the therapist, like you're both going. It's the parachute cord. Someone's pulling the cord. It's time to go. And so that's been helpful to kind of remove the danger from it, to just be like, maybe we should just do a check-in and just realize that will probably be a part of our marriage forever. And like,
it's helpful.
Why not? Every time we do it, we're like,
we feel closer.
Amazing.
And we feel more connected and heard. And sometimes you just need that independent voice, right? When you're both kind of just not seeing.
Because you're in it, right? You're both in it, and you need some outside eyes. Like, what are we not seeing? Help us see it. Yeah.
Exactly right. It's that perspective. So we both come away just feeling like we understand it.
So back to Tyler's question about faith.
Yeah.
Where does that faith? We know it's been tried, right?
Yeah.
We know it has been through a refiner's fire, and it is stronger. But where does it begin for you guys?
I mean, I think for me in my life, again, there's times, again, I've doubted everything, but I could never doubt the existence of God. And I think I've always fell back on that. And there were times when we were going through hard things and I mean, feeling like my soul was on fire with pain, just feeling that much pain. and just not knowing where to turn for peace, and being able to pray to God. And I won't say that I've always gotten answers, immediately, like there was just immediate peace, but I've had enough times where I felt peace, like the scripture in John 14, that peace that he leaves with you, that peace that lets you know that you don't know the outcome. You don't know how this is going to end up, but God is there, right? He's in the process with you. And so, I don't know. I think that helps build my faith. It's something I never question, I guess. With my faith, that feels more rock solid. I know there's a God, and I know his son, can help us through the atonement get better, to overcome mistakes. I felt that.
So you guys have four boys, is that right?
Yeah.
You have 4 boys. What do you hope your boys are learning from your journey together?
I think that was the hardest.
Whew.
That was what kept me stuck for so long, because I felt like they can't see this. This could crumble everything, and then we'll ruin their lives. I remember thinking maybe we can just hold on until they leave the house, and then we'll go get help. No, bad idea.
We laugh. Hey, I'm laughing, but there are folks in that boat. So
well, Mike, it goes back to that thought that you had, Melissa, when your seminary teacher said, well, if you have the gospel, you don't fight, right? And here you are in the gospel, raising 4 boys, and things are pretty tumultuous, and it's not matching up with what you feel like it should, right? And so that's kind of where these feelings of shame and guilt and remorse just start to flood the arena. And then, how do we fix that?
Kids just add a whole new dimension for me. I mean, that was a lot of therapy with me, of just, honestly feeling just like at tears of like, I've messed up. Like you don't have problems in isolation, right? You don't hide these things.
They know.
Your kids pick up on it. Even if you think you are, they know mom and dad aren't right. They know that there's problems, right? And sometimes
color everything.
Yeah, they could tell, and they become sensitive, and then they're almost like hypersensitive when they know you're going through struggles. And so at first that was tough to navigate, but what I think a therapist has helped us with, and what we had to realize is and this is what I've decided to do as a dad, is just to be honest and say, hey, I'm struggling, and going through that process of saying, being open with them. Hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with this. I have some anxiety too. This is something that's been eating at me for a long time. And I'm trying to get better, you guys. I'm not perfect, but these are the things that I'm trying to do, with the hope that they'll see, because I don't want to lie to them. I don't want to present this like, this is what I'm saying, but they see me doing something different. Is just be honest, and let them see me through the process. And I hope I don't ruin them, right? I hope that they're not permanently scarred from this. I worry about that every day, that they are, but maybe down the road when they struggle, they'll say, you know what, dad went through a hard time. I remember dad did.
Well, think of Enos, right?
Yeah.
When they're in their wilderness, what comes to their mind? It's going to be like, hey, that thing worked for my parents. Yeah. Hey, that thing worked for my dad. And like, that's what you want.
Well, and I love that idea of being open and having those conversations with your kids. I think, when I was growing up, right, as a different generation, it was definitely like my dad was there was never a peek behind the curtain, And so as an adult, you sort of have to figure that out on your own. And I love that idea of just being open and honest. And, we talk about transparency and vulnerability as if those are key components to deep and meaningful relationships, adult to adult. But I'm with you, Aaron. I believe that same rule applies adult to child, right? If I can say, look, if I can walk back in a room after I've acted like a jerk and say, listen, that was terrible and it's not okay. And I know you're going to say it's okay, but it's not okay. Right. And we got to be able to hold each other accountable, even though you're 10 or whatever. right? I love that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Melissa,
Okay,
you got a comment about that?
I would love to be able to get through the words, because I think that's really easy. If somebody is in a spot where they are struggling and the last thing they can possibly imagine doing is taking that struggle to their kids, how do you change their mind?
One of my big problems in our marriage was feeling like I could control everything. I can control Aaron and his relationship with God, and I can control this experience for everybody. And I remember talking to my brother-in-law, who was a therapist, and just saying, I can't do this to my children. And he said, do you need help? And I said, yes. And he said, start there. You have to start with yourself. And then as you heal yourself, I really think it's generational. We're dealing with things that our great grandparents probably dealt with and never, healed from. And so as we heal first ourselves and then our marriage, then that will naturally spill over to the children. But I had disassociated from my pain and just lived disembodied for so long that I had to just listen to it and accept that I can't control how this affects my children. I can't control any part of this besides my own
your own
healing.
show up.
I'm just listening to my own heart and attending to it. When I had reached expert level of not feeling my feelings, and that's disastrous.
But I think kids, though, they pick up on these situations, and it's scary, right? I could see in my kids fear, like mom and dad, they knew. I mean, they would ask us, are you guys going to get a divorce? Are you guys going to, be done? And you could see in Parker and especially the older kids, they were scared. And so having no conversation, what I'd say to them, having no conversation, I think it leaves kids just spiraling, wondering, where do mom and dad stand? And so those open conversations of saying, hey, you know what? I've had a problem with temper. I lose my temper quick. I'm trying to work on that. And this is what it looks like. I'm talking to the bishop. I'm asking God, right, of things I need to do. These are the steps I've taken, and just being open and honest. I think it's actually created more openness from them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as we've made this move and it's been hard on kids, I think and opens the other way where it
liberates them, right? It liberates them to not, this isn't a dog and pony show.
Yeah.
Dad's being real. It gives us the green light to be real. Where if everybody's walking on eggshells and they're trying to act this part, the whole house is acting a part.
Well, and what I love is that you're giving them tools by example, right? I mean, if I go back to me as a kid, right, I become an adult and I'm just figuring it out, man. It's like, there was no discussion about how to deal with this stuff in my house, right? So you just kind of figure it out. And I love that idea that you're living it, you're explaining it. And, so when I think, like, what are they learning? Shoot, what are they not learning, right? They're learning things not to do. They're learning things to do. And they're hearing that this is what you're doing. And you talk about tools. I mean, these four boys are putting tools in the tool belt, and they may not know it, but there's going to come a time where they're going to turn back and look and say, shoot, when mom and dad were going through this stuff and they did these things to get themselves to a better spot, that's what I know I need to do. Right. And I commend you for that.
Well, you're modeling, right? You're modeling the way.
Absolutely.
You're modeling the way to deal.
And we apologize a lot.
Yeah.
As do I.
I mean, we go and going through therapy has made me realize, we may have made some mistakes here. And I've talked to my children about that. You know what? Like, I was really hard on you when you were a toddler. You might need to talk to someone about that eventually. So sorry. Like, we're just doing the best we can, and kind of freeing myself from the shame of that. Like, we're just doing the best we can, and and like just taking accountability for when we mess up, and
and acknowledging that best fluctuates.
Yeah.
Right. There's variance in in the best. But I mean, I think that some things don't vary, right? Your expression of love, your and unconditional love at that, right? You're asking for them to love you despite, I mean, warts and all. Like, here's dad, here's mom. I'm asking you to love me.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, can you guys talk about hope and what gives you hope now? And what does that look like for you today?
I can say now, I mean, I'm at a point now that I have hope in our marriage. I have faith even that our marriage is it's gonna work, because we've tackled those walls, we've knocked them down, we've built that foundation, we've rebuilt it. And when I look forward now, it's not fear like it was before, right? It's this hope of us getting into a more mature and healthy relationship. And we've had people paint that picture, right? And so the picture that I have, the hope that I have, is these two individuals that love each other, that are totally passionate about things in their life, right? Me, maybe it's medicine, and for Melissa, it's, you know, writing, and it's her passions, helping the poor. She went with Doug McMullen and helped, you know, with a lot of homelessness. But two people following their passions and not fighting and getting in each other's way and blocking the light, but just going after those passions and coming back together, right, on fire, and again, helping each other out, being support. To me, that gets me excited. Melissa's getting into some things now, and again, instead of this idea of sinking each other, I feel like we're helping each other, right? That we're supporting each other in the goals that we have. That's my hope. I can see that, though. I can see that goal. I don't think that we're there, but I feel like I understand what it is.
When that vision kind of strikes at that codependency Melissa mentioned earlier, right? That I'm going to be responsible to light my life with my passions and with those things that help me feel alive. I'm expecting and I'm giving the green light from my partner to do the same. And we're both eyes on the Savior, working on our relationships with him.
Yeah,
and
right.
As a default, we draw close to him, as I draw close to him and my wife draws close to him, the distance between us grows.
We're helping each other flourish. What about you, Melissa? What gives you hope?
I have endless hope in a Christ who heals and who cares more about wholeness than he does about our comfort. And just throughout my whole life, if something isn't in our life, it's not supposed to be in our life yet. He will bring what we need in the moment that we need it. And I remember for us, it was probably a good 18 months, more than that, like almost 2 years. And I remember, we were literally like plunged into darkness where we're surrounded by a burned down forest. Like we're surrounded by blackness. And I remember it was Easter weekend, and everybody celebrates, Easter week. And we do like a daily thing where you're, celebrating talking about what Jesus did every day. And, Good Friday, he's crucified. And we do this thing where we'll like turn lights off in the house, and then we have like a fire Saturday morning to bring back the light. And I remember just thinking like how dark that must have been, and feeling finally in this whole process, my thinking went from that is hard, this is hard, to that was hard. It was like the shift where finally it was like, I said was for the first time in like 2 years. And I just felt this like really sweet assurance that he can't save us from the darkness sometimes, but he camps out with us in the darkness and just like waits with us until the light comes. And he is the light, and he can't save us from the darkness, but it doesn't mean he's not there.
So you've mentioned Bishop Cooley. As you stand where you are and being on this side of it, I love that shift, because I was going to ask the question, was there a moment when you thought, okay, maybe maybe we're going to make it, right? And it sounds like at that Easter season, and the idea of that was hard, and that is something that we are climbing out of. Are there folks, you mentioned a few people that were there for you in your moments, the Thompsons, Adam, Bishop Cooley. Are there any others that you would like to honor and celebrate from this vantage point?
When I left, I went to the Matson's house, my friend Megan Matson, and she called Shelly, and I remember them just like crying in my lap, like just holding me. My friend Diana Michalecki just saying, any one of you can come at any time of the night. And Aaron's welcome here too. Like, he can sleep on our couch any night. And I knew she meant it. And I remember her writing him a letter and saying, like, I love you, but not in a superficial way, but in a, I want to wring your neck in heaven kind of way. And, she meant that. And, our therapist was incredible. She walked this tightrope of working with both of us and also helping us together. And then God gifted me with this land and this holy space that ended up really connecting me to Heavenly Mother in a really sacred experience, just in a way that will forever impact me. And just this land I felt cupped in its hands for years in a really kind of sacred cocoon kind of way.
I've mentioned a few. I think both of our parents were great during the process, and it's hard, right? It's hard to know how much to let family in, and you don't want family to have to take sides or feel like they have to take sides. But both were really, really supportive. I'm grateful for my parents. I do want to mention Melissa's her dad. So one of the hardest conversations in this was, and what kept coming to my mind before having this conversation is I just felt like, their family knew a lot of what happened and they were not going to like me, that they would take a side. And it worried me. I know when we got married, I believe it was him that said, take care of my daughter, and those words, it wasn't just like, hey, take care of my daughter, but I'm giving you my daughter and you need to take care of her. And feeling like, again, I just made so many mistakes. And then here's Dee calling me on the phone, her dad. And it wasn't necessarily about that to start with, but I didn't care about the other thing. And eventually I just said, hey, I'm so sorry. I have not treated your daughter well. And I know that you have every right to just be really mad at me. And I'd understand it, but I just want to say I'm sorry. And it was just instant forgiveness. I mean, it wasn't even, yeah, you're right. You need to do this and that. It wasn't the lecture again. It was, Aaron, we all go through hard things. We're here for you. We're right here with you. And it shocked me. Again, another thing that shocked me to feel a love from her dad like that. But it meant everything to me. It meant everything to me. So that's another shout out. There's been so many people. I know we'll forget people, and that doesn't mean that they haven't been important. I mean, every family member I think has reached out. When we were going through struggles, almost every one of her siblings texted or called me and just said, we love you. And I was like, why? Why do you love me? Like, I've done so many things to hurt her. Like, I can't believe that you'd be doing that. But I think everyone had reached out and supported me. You're a brother. We love you. We want you guys to be okay.
I left and went to a friend's house, and called the bishop, and he came and he said, I caught an early flight and came home, and I've been pacing around my house because I knew someone needed me and I didn't know who yet. And he wasn't even supposed to be there, but felt like he needed to catch an early flight home.
Yeah, I
Do you remember
forgot
that?
that. That's right.
I've loved listening to you guys, and first of all, I'm super grateful for your honesty and for the directness of the conversation tonight, because I think that I mean, people are going to hear this and they're going to be spurned to action. You know, they're going to find things in their lives that they need to fix. And I believe, you know, that you know, if we go back to that discussion about Holland and like a broken vessel, and boy, we just need to embrace everything we have at our disposal to give us an opportunity to get where we know we can be. Right. And I see you guys describing that journey of trying to get where you know you can be. You know, you talk about it being a work in progress. And I love that conversation because, you know, the idea of marital bliss, I'm not sure what that looks like, to be honest with you. My wife would tell you she has no idea. But I love
the Step of Hallmark channel, right?
It is. But I love that conversation and the honest conversation that it is a constant work, right? I've been married 24 years. This February was 24 years of marriage, and it's work, you know, and it is work, and it's a glorious work. And I'm grateful to be involved in it with the woman I'm involved in it, but it is hard work. And I appreciate you guys describing the arduous nature of marriage. I think it's important. And I think it's something that I needed to hear. And it's something that our listeners need to hear. And we need to remind ourselves of that, because it's easy to become complacent and just settle into habits and to stop thinking and considering that there's other people involved, right?
Other sides of the bridge.
Other sides of the bridge, another boat paddling alongside you, right? But I just am very, very grateful, you guys. I appreciate it. It's been eye-opening for me. I've been sitting here taking notes along the journey with you guys, and I'm just grateful for your candor tonight.
I love all of it. And I think of that. So Tyler and I are kind of geeky, and we get excited about Thursday nights, and we exchange texts, and I sent him a poem, and you know, in the first line of that poem, Psalm of Life is real, life is earnest. And that is what I feel tonight. And I just want to go, I want to go out on a limb. And I just want to share with you from my faith that I believe. It's interesting when I asked Aaron about how he felt driving over to the bishop's house that night. And he said, I felt kind of like just out of body. I believe that you had heaven's help. Melissa, you had heaven's help. And I think of, I don't know, angels. I think of people, ancestors. I think of loved ones that are dead and gone. The stakes are so high, and the love is so strong that if these two folks can just get to that bishop's house, and that good bishop can just have enough to say to keep that heart beating and to keep you guys going forward. I can't help but think that when I'm dead and gone and I'm an angel, that's the errand I would love to be on, right? Is to just be in someone's ear and say, man, keep going. But Tyler, it's kind of like that conversation that you have with someone who's struggling with something, and your response is, that's awesome. You mean you're struggling. You're not at a place where you've given up. That's wonderful. We can work with that. And I just think, what an amazing story. And I believe now that you might be in a place where sharing it is your part of making weak things become strong. Yeah. That now you can. I don't think we could have had this conversation a couple years ago.
No
But
way.
now that it's like the snow globe got shook up, and now that it's settled enough, we can have a conversation and now point outward and say, anybody relating to this?
Yeah.
Anybody else in this camp? Because normalizing it is huge.
Yeah.
And
This is not unusual to the Englebrights.
It's funny, Mike, you talk about angels, and as I'm taking notes, right, I'm writing down Leslie Haas and Chuck Cooley and Diana Michalecki and
Angels.
and I'm just, it's like this list of angels, right, that are willing to intervene and are willing to, you know, it's funny because they don't know, right? They don't know all the dirty details. They know things are maybe amiss, but they step in and say something or put their arm around you or cry in your lap, Melissa, right? And these are moments like, I feel like, you know, that's angelic. And man, what a huge blessing to kind of sit and turn around and look at where you've been and see all of the people that have been intermingled with you through that journey to get you where you are today. I just love that thought, because that group of people is thick. Like, that's a throng, right? And it's exciting to think about how many people love the Englebrights. And
it's an opus. It's an
right.
opus.
It's
right?
interesting because I've never met the Englebrights, but I could tell you that I love the Englebrights. And
hey, Tyler, at this point, you can give me some credit for picking them.
Yeah, Mike.
Right?
I mean, I figured Mike didn't know anybody of interest, and he's proven me wrong over and over again. But you guys, it's been phenomenal. And one thing we always end our show the same way with the question. Our show, The Richest Men in Town, really is about a community of people being able to recognize the richness of their lives. And I feel enriched tonight just hearing your journey, but we want to ask you that same question. To you, Aaron, what does it mean to you to be considered the richest man in town? And to you, Melissa, what does it mean to you to be considered the richest woman in town?
I would say for me, it's being a dad, the privilege of raising 4 boys. You know, we've moved from house to house. It's never made us any happier. I've gotten jobs that's, you know, allowed us to have more money. We were just as happy when we had nothing. So I would say that. And you know, sometimes in my career, I wonder, I've seen so many people that are so career focused and that their life is their career. And sometimes I almost feel bad, like, why, you know, why am I not like that? But then I remind myself that my greatest joys are with my boys, out fishing on a lake, out talking about things, out hiking trails, you know, being with Melissa and connecting with her. That's what makes my life rich. And you guys mentioned all these friends, and, you know, I feel this obligation almost now, and I should, to pay it forward, right? To be like them, to be an angel to someone, you know. And I'd throw that out there. If anybody ever wanted to talk about therapy, I would love to help them. But those friends make my life rich. I could lose everything, and I would still feel like I'm rich if I had the family and friends that I do.
Okay, what makes me the richest woman in town? I feel like what makes sense of and adds meaning to life is really getting in tune with God's will for my life, and then having the courage to live into that. And I haven't always been great at that, but whenever I have, it's built a relationship of trust. When he's prompted us to, like, do things that scared us. Like, I mean, we've had lots of opportunities like that have taken some courage to answer the call. And then there's just a lot of peace that comes from that, and meaning that comes from just being in the space that you know he wants you to be. Part of that for me is helping people to feel less alone. to help them. And now I just feel, I mean, we've used lots of other tools to just help understand each other. And I feel really motivated in that space to just help people understand and make space for those they love, to understand the wounding and the pain driving their decisions, and to then offer grace and compassion and empathy. And I would just say to any listener, if you, like, one of the hardest parts of this is feeling so alone at church. I remember looking around like, there's no one else doing this. I've never heard like a general authority talk about their marriage troubles. So we must be so fundamentally broken or like disqualified ourselves from whatever. And so I would just say, you are not alone. It is normal to struggle. If there's no conflict, then it's probably not healthy. And
if there's no struggle, someone's lying.
Yeah, I just love you. I love you and want you to know that.
I love those answers. I appreciate you guys so much. We're definitely blessed tonight to spend a couple hours with you. And I hate to see these episodes come to an end, because I have taken tons of notes, and I just feel like, hopefully that there's some things that we can put into action, right? Because that's the game plan here, is that we have these conversations that are meaningful. Hopefully there's some depth to them. Tonight there certainly was. But if we don't take action on it, then we're missing the boat. So I appreciate you guys giving myself and our audience some things to think about tonight.
I love that you've given us a model for what it looks like.
Yeah.
What does it look like, right? And I think that that's a tough thing.
Good.
And I think that now it's like, I know what rebuilding a foundation looks like in a marriage. I know what cracks look like. I know the danger of those things, right? And I think that having you share your life experience, your marriage, your faith, the struggles, the good, the bad, the ugly. Here's how it's going to go down. When Mike Freeman dies, I'm going to be looking back, and I'm going to love all of it. All of it. I'm not going to, ideally, if we're doing it right and we're doing it and we're walking by faith, those things that were charred, like your property, right? Those things that are just damaged and broken are going to be gilded, and they're going to be beautiful, and they're going to be reminders, right? That we lived, that we were flawed human beings that loved, that hated, that did works of righteousness, that did works of ugliness, right? All of it. And having the courage to tell your story is only going to be liberating to all of us, to be able to live more authentically, right? With more purpose. And I just want to tell people that are listening right now, stop running. Stop, right? Face the dog. It sounds super easy to do, but running eventually is exhausting. And I'm a runner. No, hold up.
You're a swimmer, man. You're a swimmer.
I'm a swimmer. Right. But I mean, we've all had these situations where we're either running or we're building up pavilions and hiding ourselves, right? I mean, stop doing these things. And I always say, I've said before, in my work with kids and my work with people, it's like hurt people hurt people. But now when I hear Melissa talking about that All Things New, I'm going to Amazon, right? All Things New, buying that book. But the idea is hurt people, and including ourselves.
Yeah.
When we do these things, it's an indicator that we are hurting. And that's the work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Man, so much great content, so much great out of your story, and I cannot wait for the world to hear it, guys.
Can I just say this too? I just think, I don't think we're unique individuals. There's nothing that makes us remarkable, you know, in our story. Anybody could have access to this. And so for me, I do want to share that story of, again, our story of therapy and getting in to see, you know, our saving grace, Leslie, and seeing them. Anybody can do it. You know, I hope people don't walk away from this saying, well, there's something unique about them. There's not, right? We're just people, and there's help there if a person is willing to want it and to reach out, right? And have the courage to do it. And I guess if we can do it, anybody can get into it. And there's benefits. There's absolutely amazing benefits that come from it.
Well, I would say it's tonight really has been a message of hope. And I think that's, you know, I hope that's what people take away, right? Is that, hey, I find myself in a position that maybe isn't the ideal, but it can be changed, right? I don't have to accept that. We can find resources. There's things available to us. There's people willing to listen to get us to a better spot. And I think you guys conveyed that beautifully tonight. And we are grateful for your time, for your sacrifice of time tonight. We know 2 hours with Mike and I can be painful. So, but we appreciate you making the sacrifice to be with us.
We'll see what our children have done for the last 2 hours.
Yes. We'll see how happy you guys are after you walk outside that room. So,
you know, they did the dishes. Come on.
Well, hey, you guys, we love you. We appreciate you. We're grateful for your time, and we look forward to checking in again sometime in the future.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Love you guys.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.